Hello guys, Tops here. Today I have a question to the community. Why do you guys like fatigue neutral? Because I think fatigue neutral is a hoax, and I'm gonna explain that to you. See, the average bro has 90 to 100 fatigue. Most backgrounds have that, so on average 95 fatigue. Starting fatigue, right? If I give this brother full forge gear, he's gonna have, and 2 weapons, he's gonna have 7 usable fatigue. Because full forge gear with double weapons is 87 fatigue. So that means, actually I think 88 fatigue. Anyways, that means I need to invest it in order to make fatigue neutral work. I need to have 15 usable fatigue, a weapon mastery in Pathfinder, so that I can always walk one tile and hit. That's the idea behind fatigue neutral, right? So, in order to make the average bro a fatigue neutral, I need to take 3 fatigue rolls. Or I need to take brawny, one of the two, because 7 fatigue is not gonna be enough. I can't hit and walk one tile. I can't do nothing with 7 fatigue. I can walk 2 tiles, that's it. So, if I already invest in fatigue, either by rolls or by perks, why don't give the guy berserk killing frenzy if I'm already investing in fatigue? And I think that's the hoax. Because in my mind, if we assume we have to take 3 fatigue rolls, right? We still take, let's say, 4 hit points rolls, 3 resolve rolls, right? Because we get 10 level ups, right? But like, let's just imagine we take 2 more like rolls into fatigue to make him into a berserker, right? Like 1 fatigue and 1 resolve roll, or 1 hit point, 1 resolve roll less, right? But therefore we have stuff like killing frenzy, berserk, right? I don't understand. Like, there is not a big difference, and like, why do people like this so much, right? What's the difference? I don't understand this build. And I think it is a hoax, because in my mind there's not a huge difference stats-wise between a berserker and a fatigue neutral. Like, and people tell me you need a premium bro to make a fatigue neutral. Right, but if you have a premium bro, why don't make him into a berserker? I make my premium bros into a berserker. They're very rare. My best bros, they become berserkers. My best bros, they have to do the most damage that they can, in my mind, right? Also because they are so rare. And some people, they even take stuff like sword masters and retired soldiers who have like assassins, right? Who have like 80 fatigue, 85 fatigue, so even less fatigue. So now you have to invest like 5 or 6 fatigue rolls in order to get your 102 fatigue that you need. Or in this case, I would argue you really need to take brawny, so you get your 18 fatigue from brawny, so you don't have to invest too many rolls into fatigue. Right? So what's the difference? If you don't take berserk, you don't take killing frenzy, and you take brawny instead, right? And maybe stuff like fortified mind, or gifted, or I don't know, reach advantage, 9 life, stuff that makes you tankier, right? Like, how much tankier are you, right? Because I would argue your stats are relatively speaking the same. There's no big difference in the stats, right? Maybe you have like 10 more hit points, 10 more resolve, at best. Attack and defense is the same, right? Because you took the same perks. I don't understand this, guys. And that's why I'm asking you as a community, why do you like fatigue neutral so much? And why do you prefer fatigue neutral above the berserker, right? Because in my mind, there's no big stat difference, and the fatigue neutral is not much more defensive, it's a little bit more defensive, but is lacking much more damage. So, in my mind, the trade-off between a little bit less defensive, but basically twice the damage because you can hit twice, right, is much better. Also, if you get rooted or netted, right, you lose fatigue. Basically a fatigue neutral with 15 fatigue. You can't free yourself from a net or from a root, right? you can barely release a dog, right? If you get dazed or receive any other status effect that like afflicts your fatigue, you can't do shit, man. You basically become nothing. You can't move, right? And you are also not that defensive like a tank, right? You don't have the level of defense that a tank has. So I can't use him like a tank to fatigue neutral. I can't put this guy in front of a Lundwurm and say, yeah, it's gonna be fine. Or a Shroud or something. No. Like we need stuff like Shield Wall, Endowment, like with Shield Wall like 80, 90 defense to achieve like a level of like, he's gonna be fine. Also much more defensive perks, right? So a fatigue neutral is not a proper tank, it's not a proper damage dealer. It's neither, right? So isn't that just inferior? I don't get this build. And if you have a brother like, you wanna be him a little bit of everything, why don't make a greatsword build, right? Where you take stuff like reach advantage and fortified mind, and now you are much more resilient, right? I like to take this build on bros who have a little bit low attack, but still great defense and good primary stats, and give them a greatsword. Now I have kind of an off-take tank that I can put on the flank with fortified might and reach advantage, and like, he's gonna be fine, right? He's gonna be fine. He's tanky enough for that. So he's kind of the same as a fatigue neutral with like, I stack high defense on them, right? And then I put them into a dangerous situation, that's fine. But this guy also does more damage than a fatigue neutral, because he can berserk and he has killing frenzy. So I really don't understand this build. And I think it is a hoax. I think it is a hoax in Battle Bros. Right, why do people go fatigue neutral? Because even on a fatigue neutral, you have to invest rolls into fatigue. And even on a completely average pro, it's gonna be at least 3 rolls fatigue. And to be honest, like 15 fatigue is the bare minimum that you need. If you get affected by anything, you're fucked. If you have to climb up a hill and you use more than 2 fatigue to walk, or more than 3 fatigue, man, you can't attack, right? If you get rooted or netted, you're fucked. If you get any status effect that affects your fatigue, you're fucked, right? So, in my mind, running around with less than 30 usable fatigue is a huge risk, right? You can get yourself in a situation where you can't do shit. Like if you get poisoned by a goblin arrow, like what do you do? Can you even bandage yourself? I don't think you can even bandage yourself. Wait, what's bandaging? Ah, it's 5 fatigue. Okay, you can bandage yourself. Never mind then. Okay, well, like there are things you can't do. I think, can you walk 1 tile and release a dog? No, you can release it to walk, but you can't walk 1 tile. So they're like, you're limiting yourself by playing with low fatigue. So much, because you need fatigue for everything. In order to do everything and anything in the game, you need fatigue. Limiting yourself to 15 fatigue because you recover 15 fatigue per turn, that limits yourself in a big way. And is it worth? That's the point. Is it worth the additional defense that you get? Right? Because I'm not so sure if that's worth, to be honest. If you say we don't need brawny, take fortified mind. What do we take? Reach advantage maybe? Instead, or maybe fortified mind. What do we take? Like what perks do we take? Right? What is the proper perk? Because that's already 11 perk that I have here. Right? Do we do this? Is that the fatigue neutral build? Is that much more survivable than a berserker? Not really, right? I don't think it is much more survivable. I don't think it is. And that's my point, guys. I never understood this build. I understand the concept and I know how to build it. But like, this guy is not much different. And like people say, like berserkers need much fatigue. No, they don't. Look at them. 41 fatigue is absolutely fine, right? You know, they scale well into the late game too. Like if you find Famed Gear, who's a little bit lighter, perfect. And that's the point. Like if you have 41 fatigue, you're gonna berserk 2 or 3 times and then you can become a fatigue neutral, right? You can always become a fatigue neutral. But a fatigue neutral never can become a berserker, right? I don't get it. I don't get it. One thing I could envision is if you do a Nimble Forge Berserk. If you do a Nimble Forge neutral. That is something I can get my head around. Because now you not necessarily have to invest in fatigue because your armor is probably half of what you originally use. So like you gonna have the 20 additional fatigue, right? You also have much more initiative, so stuff like dodge becomes much more interesting, so you can stack melee defense, which is strong, right? So like the Nimble Forge fatigue neutral, you know, that is something I might understand. The problem is now we have to sacrifice, you know, other perks, like we have to probably sacrifice damage. What's the Nimble Forge approach? Stuff like this, dodge maybe, you know? Still you want to have this, or you still want to have quick hands, stuff like that, you know? That if you do this one, Nimble Forge, this makes sense to me, because now we have much more perks that make us much more survivable. I can kind of get behind a Nimble Forge neutral as like a complete tank where you try to only stack melee defense. I get that. I get the idea. I can kind of see that. That kind of feels a little bit stronger. But if you go Nimble Forge, you have the fatigue to go Berserk Killing Frenzy as well. So why bother, right? I don't get it. If you need a tank, right? An off tank, just take a tank. And if you don't have an off tank, right? Right? Why do you need an off tank? If you make an off tank, you can make a Greatsword Pro. It's hard for me to get around. And I never got this properly explained from the people who really like this build. What is the big advantage? Where is the big difference? Where is the huge advantage that I get from playing Forge neutral, right? Because like defensive-wise, it's a little bit more expensive, but literally does half the damage of a Berserker, right? Which is a lot. Damage per round is very important in Battle Bros. Like a lot of fights are pure damage checks, right? Basically all undead fights. Stuff like Unholz, right? Orc fights is also most likely just a pure DPS check. If you kill them faster than they kill you, you're gonna win, right? So damage per round is generally speaking more important than tankiness overall in Battle Bros, right? So making off tanks, does that even make sense? Like off tanks who can't use Indom, who do not have shield wall, who can't taunt, who can't rotate, right? Is that even valuable? I'm not sure, guys. I'm not sure. And again, I think the hoax is, even on a fatigue neutral, you have to invest into fatigue or take brawny. And if you're at that point, why don't make him into a berserker, right? And especially if you play like, if you take the premium bro, right? You want your best brother to do the best damage, or the most damage he can do, right? Why just not make him into Nimble or Nimble Forge? If you really don't want to play with fatigue, why not make him Nimble or Nimble Forge, right? Why do you go Battle Forge if you don't have the fatigue, right? Or if you spend the fatigue, why make him Forge neutral? I don't understand this completely. I just don't. I never understood it. I never understand why it's so beloved by the community. And I know how to build that stuff, but I just don't think it is much stronger. Every time I build it, it feels inferior. Every time I play it, it's just like, it's fine, it works, okay. But so are working my berserkers, and they're working much better. They just kill stuff, and these guys, they just exist. Is it just existing good enough? I don't think so. Because like a proper tank, he does a lot of things. Like a proper tank, like either like a lone wolf tank who just can tank everything, or he's like a utility tank who has like stuff like rotate, taunt, right? Maybe rally. Rally tanks are not bad, right? Or it's like an early game dodge tank who can just dodge anything. Like no matter what you put in front of him, like a Linform, a Shroud, he's gonna get hit on 5%, he's gonna tank it, right? Yeah, like why do you limit yourself with fatigue neutral that much? And where is the upside? I don't get it. And like people say you can make fatigue neutral early. Really? Really? Like, as soon as you have forge gear, you make a fatigue neutral. Like, if you find like a god bro, or like a good bro who's like really high attack and defense, you really want to make this guy into fatigue neutral instead of a berserker? Either nimble berserker or battleforge berserker? Like, as I told you guys, I think the biggest problem for me with the fatigue neutral is you can't ignore fatigue. You still have to invest rolls in fatigue or take brony in order to give this guy enough fatigue to wear the gear. Or, that is the other thing you can do, you give this guy much lighter armor. Which at that point, if you start reducing battleforge armor to like, if you go below 300 armor, you get much less value out of battleforge armor. The more battleforge armor you have, the better battleforge works. Like, so if you have 400, you're basically immortal. Like, your battleforge armor will go for a very, very long time. Because you get much more damage reduction, right? So this one, like, is that the answer? Just reducing the weight of the armor, but then you are less survivable. Again. And at that point, like, why don't make him a berserker if you already go for less survivability? I don't understand this build. I really don't. And like, I never had like an argument that said to me, okay, this is the difference. That makes it so much more worse. So much better, right? If you say, yeah, he has fearsome. Yeah, guess what? My berserker can have fearsome too. Right? My berserker can have fearsome too. What's the problem? Just give my berserker fearsome. Right? Now he can hit twice if he berserks, and he can proc even more mortis checks. So even if I play around with fearsome and make all of my builds based around fearsome, a berserker is much better with fearsome. Because berserker can proc fearsome much more than non-berserkers. Easy, right? So you get the moral cascades much earlier going with berserkers. I don't know. In my mind, brothers, you can take any bro with like 95 resolve, you spend a couple points in resolve, and or you give him brawny and he's gonna be a berserker and he's gonna be fine. Look at this, these guys. They have like, what do we have? 48 usable resolve. It's an absolute monster, a killing machine. Look at him, 41 usable resolve. No brawny. Absolute killing machine. Does his kills, does his damage, right? Is much better than a fatigue neutral. Does much more damage. Is still very survivable. Look at the stats, right? You know? And like, even if you wanna make the fatigue neutral, like I can kind of see when you make it like a nimble forge fatigue neutral and you really stack like dodge and reach advantage and you don't take any damage perk and you just go nuts, right? You just take a two-handed weapon for the reach advantage, right? And you just stack melee defense, get to like 60, 70 melee defense on your big two-hander. Okay, I can kind of get that. But why not give him a greatsword, make him into a berserker with reach advantage? You're gonna achieve the same thing, right? It's a lot of rambling from my side, but also, I really don't understand it. And no matter from what side I attack the problem, I can't find the solution. I can't find the difference. I can't find the definitive thing that says, this is the much better build. Because in my mind, it's just not. And as you can see, 7 fatigue on a 95 fatigue bro. So we have to invest in fatigue, even on a fatigue neutral. We can't just ignore fatigue in the building and say, you know, I still have like 5 or 6 more rolls on hit points and resolve, so I'm much more tanky. No. How much more are you gonna have? Maybe 2? Because even on my berserkers, I take like at least 2 or 3 hit point rolls, 2 resolve rolls, maybe 5 fatigue rolls. That's it, right? But like at least 3, sometimes 4 hit point rolls and resolve rolls. I always want to have at least like 40 usable fatigue, 40 resolve and like at least 85 hit points, at least. Most of the time 90, 100, right? That's much more common with my Battleforge builds. You know, like 45 resolve, 100 hit points, 48 usable fatigue. Right? That's enough. And even as a berserker, that is good enough for a berserker. That is enough fatigue for a berserker. Works absolutely fine. Yeah. Maybe it's the misconception that you need like, I don't know, 80 resolve and recover for like Battleforged berserkers in order to make them work, which, like, as you can see, you don't. You can get away with much less fatigue and still have great berserkers that do a lot of killing. And that is, in my mind, a much superior build to Battleforged neutral. You can make it at the same time, it requires the same gear, it requires the same bros, right? And I can see if you want to make a fatigue neutral and you make him out of a retired soldier or like a swordmaster, and you say, okay, I can't make him really into a berserker, and like I have to take brawny and stuff, and like, okay, if you have like a very, very specific background, maybe. But I bet you, if you take brawny and take a couple fatigue rolls, I'm probably sure you can make him into a berserker, and that would scale much better into the late game. Yeah, but that's kind of like my opinion on the whole fatigue neutral thing, and I would really like you guys in the community who like fatigue neutral, please explain in detail why the fatigue neutral is better than the Battleforged berserker. Why do you build them? How do you build them? At what point do you build them? You know, why? Why? Explain to me why the fatigue neutral is the best build in the game, because I don't think it is. But I think the community thinks it is, and I don't get it. Alright guys, see you in the comments, I hope, and in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye bye.